Tonight on Front Row, it's election night, and 3 News has you covered. We're live across Ohio covering all the angles as the polls close in just about half an hour. Powerball prize after an hours-long delay. We now know there was a single winner for last night's record-setting jackpot. Details on that and where $1 million winner was sold right here. Moving day, it's on the way for a Cleveland company as it plans to move its headquarters out of downtown. Why and where it's headed. And, hey, Jimmy, you have Brown's questions? I've got some answers for you tonight. Coming up, you're in the front row.
From the WKYC studios, this is Front Row.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome in. It's the Tuesday edition of Front Row on a very important night, election night. Thanks for being with us. I'm Jim Donovan.
And I'm Laura Queso. Yes, Jim, it is a special night here in Northeast Ohio and really across the country, of course. Voting for the midterm elections closes in about 30 minutes. And while voting wraps up soon, the night is only just beginning. Our team is standing by to bring you the results as they come in. Lena Lai is in Columbus tonight. Lydia Esparra is in Boardman with the Tim Ryan campaign as they wait to hear the outcome of his battle against J.D. Vance. Mark Namick from Signal Cleveland joins us on set to break down that race and really hot issues surrounding tonight's results. So we begin tonight with 3 News investigative reporter Marissa Sides. Marissa joins us live inside the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections to start us off tonight in that warehouse where they will begin processing the ballots when voting closes at 7:30. Marissa, you're hitting lead off for us tonight. Start us off.
Jim, good evening to you. So really, after the polls close, this is where everything is going to happen. This room behind me will get much busier as the evening goes on. As the polls close, the ballots make their way here. Now, we'll be watching for results, much like the Department of Justice is watching Cuyahoga County this election cycle. It's one of 64 jurisdictions across 24 states being surveilled. The oversight is to prevent voter intimidation, plus making sure there aren't any voting rights being violated. So again, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we'll reiterate those polls close in 30 minutes. So if you really want to make it last minute, you've got a little bit of time to get in line. And things are just getting started here. The Board of Election officials tell me around 8 o'clock is when they anticipate ballots will really start trickling in here. Then we'll get to see some of those election results being trickled in into the system, which we'll see online. And of course, we'll have election results on our website, WKYC.com. And as developments happen here at the warehouse, we'll share those with you on our streaming special on our streaming app, WKYC Plus. Jim, Laura.
All right. Thanks very much, Marissa. As I say, we only begin right now. Turning to the pivotal races. Lena Lai is in Columbus at the Ohio Republican camp. Lena, what can you tell us ahead of a big night down there in Columbus?
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Laura. Yes, we are here at the Columbus Renaissance where the statewide Republican ticket is holding its election night watch party. Earlier this evening, we saw Governor Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor John Husted and their families doing a little walkthrough rehearsal on the stage behind me. But make no mistake, I am surrounded by dozens of news crews from around the country and as far away as Japan, all here because of the U.S. Senate race between Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Ryan. So this morning, Vance cast his vote in Cincinnati, the culmination of a year of hard campaigning. The race has drawn this national and international attention because it is one of the handful of contested Senate races that could determine which party controls the Senate, and because of the impact of former President Trump, who really propelled Vance in a very crowded Republican primary. Trump rallying with Vance last night in Dayton. Will he get Vance over the finish line? We will be here all evening long watching the results coming in, as well as the post-election speeches as well. But for now, let's check in with the Tim Ryan campaign. Lydia Esparra is live in Boardman. Hi, Lydia.
Well, hey, Lena. Yes, I am in Boardman. Boardman is outside of Youngstown, which is also outside of Niles, and that's where Tim Ryan lives. That's where he voted this morning. Now, as far as people coming to the watch party, the doors just opened. They're just starting to trickle in here. But let me talk about an exit poll by NBC. They talk about the issues most valued by voters is obviously the abortion and also inflation. Now, Ryan has told me that he is pro-choice. He believes in a woman's choice to choose. And also he talked about inflation, about bringing jobs here to the Buckeye State. That's his top priority for the blue-collar worker to the middle class. And that's the issue he's been pressing the whole time. Did it resonate with voters? We don't know. Of course, Laura, we got to wait and see once the polls close. Now, as far as what Lena was saying about all the news media and the press, so I'm kind of in a sardine bowl right now. So I can't really show you much. Coming up tonight at What's Next, I'll give you a look around what's going on here at the watch party. We'll try and head up to Tim Ryan, see what he has to say. But yeah, there's a lot of interest in this race, Laura.
So much. And again, the polls close in 25 minutes. So get in line by 7:30 to cast your vote. Lydia Sparra live for us in Boardman. Lydia, thank you. We will see you at 11 o'clock.
Yes, now we bring in friend of the show and a friend to all of us. Mark Namick is back with us. He's the managing editor of the nonprofit newsroom Signal Cleveland. It is great to have you back.
Thank you for having me here on what is always a big night for me, someone who's covered politics for 25 plus years. So thanks for having me.
Let's put you to work right away, okay? The race, Vance, Ryan, tight. What are you looking at there?
Well, I think you're seeing, first of all, this was a Republican seat. So the fact that it's even close is why all these people are watching, because Ryan has made it close with a strong message, reaching out to both what people refer to as the Republican, country club Republican, those that aren't quite as extreme, as the far right. And he's also been looking and reaching out to the Democrat who has gone and supported President Trump the last two elections. So that dual message has worked for him. That's what he's banking on. He's made a real point of staying away from President Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. And this weekend, he wasn't even campaigning with the other Democrats. He's really wanted to be separate from it because he believes he's coming in it with a totally new message. Of reminding people that he's about the workers. You've seen that. And he's stayed on it. That's kept it close. But it's still a Republican state, and J.D. Vance is, keeping it close.
And right now, polls are showing, or projections are showing, that it will be very close. This Republicans for Ryan, you touched on it. Yeah. It seemed, that is really a big part of his campaign.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at what his messaging has been. It's been so disciplined on two fronts. The workers. Right. That's very much why President Trump did very well. He felt that Democrats had forgotten about it. He's also talked about being a little more moderate. He's had a great line during the campaign where he said, Republicans aren't wrong all the time, just as Democrats aren't right all the time. That's a very centrist message, I think, one going after that country club Republican. And, keeping it close, thanks to $48 million raised by Tim Ryan with no support really from the national Democrats because they haven't seen this as a race that they thought initially would be close, given that it was held by a Republican.
So we want to talk about other races. There are many of them. Yeah. Obviously, the governor's race. We have DeWine and Nan Whaley. And the treasurer. There are other races that
treasurer, we have the auditor, the attorney general. Those are all held by Republicans. They're incumbents. That's an advantage. They're well-funded. It's a Republican state. They should have really a fairly easy road to re-election. I would, be shocked if they didn't hold it. The Democrats, had a good, healthy primary. Nan Whaley, former mayor of Dayton, leading that. She's really tried to take that abortion decision from the summer and push that. But all Democrats are fighting against really inflation, the economy, and tying it to, President Biden. That's what J.D. Vance has said. You know what? Time for a change. How's your pocketbook going? Not going well? Vote for me.
All right, let's come really right around these neighborhoods here to the race for county executive. After 8 years under Armand Budish, we will have a new county executive. So we've seen a very spirited race between Chris Ronayne and then the Republican Lee Weingart. They agree on some issues, but then obviously they disagree on others. Where's that race going?
Yeah.
What's been the key in the race?
Well, one of the big issues that Channel 3 and others have covered has been at the county jail. We know that it's been dangerous. People have died. We need a new one. It's outdated. Doesn't hold, but it's also very expensive to do. And that issue recently died. Both candidates, Weingart and Ronayne, have opposed the current plan to rebuild it, so they've been aligned there. They also were kind of together on not putting any more public money into part of our convention center known as the MedMark Global Center on Health. So they're together there. They differ on how they want to do tax sharing in this, and then their ideological differences still remain. But it's a Democratic county, and I would say that Ronayne, has the edge in that if you're looking at the numbers.
All right, Mark Namick, we will see you coming up in streaming. And of course, our special tonight at 11. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
It is great having Mark back with us. 3 News is your home for complete election coverage. Now, for live results, updates, and more, please head to our live blog at WKYC.com. Our team will continue to update that as we learn more.
Straight ahead on Front Row, who hit the jackpot? We have new details tonight on the big Powerball winner and the local prize right here in Northeast Ohio. That's next in 3 Things You Need to Know.
Then it might be election night, but we still have some Browns ground to cover. Hey, Jimmy has a couple of questions coming our way. Peyton joins us tonight with our weather forecast. Hi, Peyton.
Hi, Jimmy. Today was pretty picture perfect when it comes to where we should be for this time of the year. It's taken us a few days to get here. Cleveland Hopkins high temperature, 54 degrees today. We are headed up, though, in the next couple of days, and what goes up must come down. We have a change of events as we head through the next 7 days. I'll let you know which days you may need your winter coat ready to grab as we head toward break. I'll give you that perspective out the door, too. Live look outside. It is dark at this time of the day, folks. I'll let you know when that sun rises, too, after the break.
Front Row is sponsored by Metro Health. Metro Health, devoted to hope, health, and humanity.
Having a career at Avery Dennison means being part of a group of passionate and talented people. At our global headquarters in Mentor and all of our locations across Northeast Ohio, you'll find diverse teams focused on creating innovative products used in healthcare, home care, food and beverage, automotive, and retail. Be inspired to be your very best self and to explore a rewarding career here at Avery Dennison. For more information on working at Avery Dennison, visit averydennison.com/channel 3.
Welcome back into Front Row. The countdown continues. In just about 16 minutes, polls will be closing and vote counting begins. Now, if you want to vote, you have to just be in line by 7:30. Then you can still cast your ballot. That's very important. 7:30, get in that line. Here's a live look inside the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections warehouse, which is just one location across the state where that tallying magic will happen. We'll bring you live results on air and online all night as they come in.
Now, we put you in the front row to 3 stories that you need to know about. First, Medical Mutual is leaving its downtown headquarters. Big story. The company announced today it will further consolidate its operations. In a statement, Medical Mutual said a majority of staff is on a hybrid schedule or working from home, going on to say, as a mutual company, we have to weigh the economic feasibility of maintaining multiple underutilized sites in Northeast Ohio with the responsibility we have toward our members, who are our top priority. The affected 250 employees will be moved to the company's Brooklyn location. That will start in January.
After 41 drawings, there is finally a Powerball winner, and Ohio is taking a piece of the prize. Hopefully it's you. The record-breaking $2 billion jackpot goes to a single ticket in California. But a $1 million ticket, not too shabby, was sold at the get-go on Detroit in Lakewood. Yeah, wow is right, Jim. The winning numbers were announced this morning following a big delay. Lottery officials say they were waiting for one participating lottery to process its sales before selecting the winning numbers.
Gosh, I go there all the time.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely. Tonight, a hurricane warning is in effect for parts of Florida as the state watches Tropical Storm Nicole.
The storm is expected to strengthen and bring hurricane-like conditions to Florida's east coast tomorrow night.
And the National Hurricane Center predicts Nicole will then sweep across the central and northern Florida parts before moving into southern Georgia on Thursday. Incidentally, the Browns head into Florida over the weekend. Perfect timing to bring in Peyton Domsky.
Yes, what do we have?
If we win the toss, do we take the wind?
I mean, I don't think that kicking and passing game is going to have a huge impact because that's actually supposed to make landfall as a Category 1 hurricane either late Wednesday night, so tomorrow night, or very early Thursday morning. So I think you'll be in the clear, Jimmy.
Right,
and as we take a look at satellite imagery of the tropics right now, well, live look outside, and then we'll take a look at the tropics. The sun is already set. We've got a limited amount of clouds overnight. We'll see a few extras added to the mix. Here's that tropical satellite. Here is now Tropical Storm Nicole. This will make that landfall to the peninsula of Florida over the next 24 to 36 hours, and it will have an impact to parts of Northeast Ohio. It comes to us in a rain event by the end of the week. So once again, that Browns game will have no impact by Nicole directly, but for us, we will have an impact by Nicole's rain, as well as what's going to happen following Nicole in and out of Northeast Ohio. Temperatures all across the area are in the 40s, closer to 50 in Dover, closer to almost the upper 30s for parts of Cuyahoga County right now. All across the area, we do have a little bit of a breeze. It won't impact the evening all too much, but the limit of cloud cover will keep us relatively cool as we head through the evening. Tomorrow morning, though, we'll start in the 40s, and then we'll make our way into the 50s. In your National Zymer on-the-hour forecast for tomorrow, a few clouds added to the mix also tomorrow morning, so you will need the sunglasses still as you head on out the door. High temperatures, though, in the mid-60s tomorrow, and that's about 10 degrees above where we should be for this time of the year, so I don't think anyone will complain about that. It's what happens with Nicole. Nicole is actually going to skirt a little bit closer to the Ohio River Valley in the days to come. It's going to mesh up with a cold front that's going to swing from the northwest, and that is the change that happens to us, where we usher in much colder air and the chance for even some flurries to fly. Yes, I said snowflakes because things get a whole lot colder. Here comes that rain from Florida as it makes its way a little bit closer to the Ohio River Valley. I think most of eastern Ohio will get clipped by the most rain. Here comes that front, and as I zoom you in even closer, here comes that chance for a little mixing to happen. Saturday night into Sunday, some rain to snow is possible here. It's not going to be the world's biggest hard-hitting event for Northeast Ohio when it comes to winter-like weather, but it will be our first big chance to see any kind of snow action across the area. Doesn't last very long as we hang on to a few flurries by Monday morning in your Union Home Mortgage extended forecast. We're even closer to 70 in the coming days. I said mid-60s tomorrow, closer to 70 for Thursday. The next 2 days, Laura, Jimmy's sitting right next to you, maybe he can get in on this, is taking Jackson out for a walk before maybe, he doesn't want to get out in 30s and 40s.
100%. That's like our daily thing.
Would he go out in the 30s?
So Jimmy
and 40s?
can join you before he heads to Miami.
Well, I think we saw a couple of weeks ago that Jackson really enjoys Jimmy.
He does.
Yeah, he did cry. When,
Would he go out in the 30s or 40s?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bundle him up, Jim.
I would hope so.
Jimmy will be bundled too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peyton. Front Row's coming back with a Hey Jimmy segment with people who respect me.
We do.
I have all the stuff, Jim. I have the hat, the gloves.
It is Tuesday, and even on election night, you know what that means. It's time for our Hey Jimmy segment. No political questions tonight. We invite you and thank you for sending in your questions about the Browns. Let's get to them. Question number 1 from Chris in Wadsworth. Hey Jimmy, do you think linebacker Sione Takitaki, and Laura just enjoyed saying his name, has the potential to be a Pro Bowl linebacker? He has looked great lately. He did. He looked very, very good when he got more playing time in the game on Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. I like Takitaki a great deal. Now, Pro Bowl linebacker, I don't know. Every down linebacker, let's start there. I think the more he plays, here's the thing I like about him, which worries me about the way the Browns have played the linebacker position. I think they play too small and too light, and I'm talking about their weight. Okay, they really get run over sometimes because they just haven't got a lot of bulk. He does. And he plays that way. He's a real hitter, and I think that's important. And I think the Browns have to investigate going back to that style of linebacker. What could he be a Pro Bowl player at? He could be a Pro Bowl special teamer. He is terrific in special teams, and he plays all special teams, which I admire a great deal about him after he came out of BYU. I mean, he's on the field a lot, and it means a great deal to him. I really like Sione Takitaki. Finally, Tom from Brook Park writes in and says, hey, Jimmy, what are your most favorite and least favorite NFL stadiums to call away games at? Okay. I know this is a bit sacrilegious, okay, but number 1, Baltimore. M&T Bank Stadium. I know we have a little bit of a rub with the Ravens and everything about, you know, the fact that our team moved there, but their stadium to call a game in is fantastic. Just the right height, right on the 50-yard line. Really great, great location. Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. Great location, up high, right over the 50-yard line. Can't miss anything. Finally, MetLife Stadium, home of the Jets and Giants in the Meadowlands in Jersey. Perfect stadium. Least favorite, winner by a landslide on election night, is FedEx Field, the home of the Washington Commanders. The worst. You call the game in the back of the end zone. Okay, you can't There's no definition to the play. And they have advertising hanging from the windows, so you have to hang your head out of the window to see punts and kicks. Absolutely the worst. All right, thanks for your questions. More Front Row is coming your way next.
Wi-Fi thermostat free with the purchase of any high-efficiency furnace. Trust Blinden & Sons with all your heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs. Call Blinden & Sons at 753.
All right, a couple of minutes and the polls will be closing around these parts. Thanks for being with us. 3 News is back with an hour-long election special tonight at 11.
Our coverage continues next. Tune in to our special 2-hour election streaming show. It starts on WKYC.com, our YouTube page, and the WKYC Plus streaming app at 7:30. We have live results, updates on air and online all night long for you. A huge team here at 3 News. Thanks for joining us. Stay with us. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you for watching 3 News. Rewatch stories and watch original content. Subscribe to the WKYC YouTube channel.
With familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
Go. It's a simple verb with a much deeper meaning. Go with purpose. Go quickly. Go to school. Go to work. Go for it. And sometimes you just really have to go. Some mornings are harder than others. We should know. That's why every morning on 3 News Go, Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go. The new and improved WKYC Plus, now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch live local newscasts, get extended breaking news coverage, and see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus, now on Roku and Fire TV. What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Every morning on 3 News Go, Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News. Go. It's a simple verb with a much deeper meaning. Go with purpose. Go quickly. Go to school. Go to work. Go for it. And sometimes you just really have to go. Some mornings are harder than others. We should know. That's why every morning on 3 News Go, Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome into a 3 News special edition with election coverage. I'm Stephanie Haney.
Yeah, Stephanie, I'm Christy Paul. It's so good to be with you. We have a lot to get to over the next couple of hours. We're going to bring in several live guests and experts to discuss what's next as the polls are closing, and they're closing really here any minute.
That's right, but if you are in line, stay in line because they've got to let you vote if you're in line. Now, speaking of those polls, we know that many Ohioans turned out to vote today, and some already cast their ballots early. And our Isabel Lawrence spoke with experts and officials about a record-breaking early voting response from voters in our state.
And it's important that Ohioans get out and make their voices heard.
Whether on Election Day or before, Ohioans are voting. According to Secretary of State Frank LaRose, they're even breaking early voting records. As of Monday afternoon, more than 1.5 million Ohioans requested an absentee ballot or cast their ballot early in person, about a 4% increase over 2018.
It's because Ohioans know that they can trust their elections, that they really are impactful and honest elections, but also because we make it convenient in Ohio.
Justin Buechler, an associate professor of political science at Case Western Reserve University, says interest in midterm elections isn't as high as presidential elections. However, this year may see more interest than past midterms due to the political climate.
We have had a lot of focus on not just President Biden, but Donald Trump has remained a focus of national attention, and that keeps level of attention on national politics somewhat higher. And that may drive more people to the polls than we would typically see in a midterm election.
As to when we will see initial results, for Cuyahoga County, the director of the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections says as soon as 8 tonight, as the early in-person votes and the vote-by-mail ballots received are counted. According to our Verify team, in Ohio, absentee and mail-in ballots are counted on Election Day before polls close.
We have about a little over 130,000 vote by mail ballots that we have in our possession now, and we had just over 20,000 people come and vote here at the board at early in-person voting. So we'll see those at about 8 o'clock.
The director of the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections says the rest of those election materials need to be physically brought to their offices and processed, and he says they won't finish processing those materials until after midnight. In Cleveland, Isabel Lawrence, 3 News.
I'll tell you what, it is certainly nice to see people very engaged this year. Now, as Ohioans head to the polls, you want to make sure that your vote counts and that the integrity of the election process is upheld. And we did speak with Secretary of State Frank LaRose on how the process works and why there is no doubt that your ballot is secure.
There are a lot of steps that go into that in Ohio. Part of it is how we even organize our elections. It's important for people to not gloss over that. It's a completely bipartisan enterprise in Ohio. That's not the case in other states. In some states, the elected county clerk runs elections. And that's the way it is in Pennsylvania, for example. If the elected county clerk is a Republican, everybody at the elections office is a Republican. Vice versa, if they're a Democrat. It's not the way we do it in Ohio. It's 50-50, half Republicans and half Democrats working well together in a very patriotic and duty-oriented way to run this process.
Secretary LaRose also tells us that there's sometimes concern about digital voting machines, and voters are worried that they're maybe connected to the internet, but he says that is just not true, and the machines aren't even capable of connecting to the internet, that they're just a simpler way to help count those votes at the end of the night. Now, when it comes to what people are voting on today, the choices we make will have a huge impact on the next 2 years in Washington, D.C. So here's a piece from my latest Legally Speaking special explaining what's at stake in midterm elections and what we typically see. Midterm elections get that name because they're considered to sort of check in on how the president is doing in the middle of a 4-year term. And there is a lot at stake right now for Democrats, since they control the presidency, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. Although you wouldn't know it by the amount of legislation they've been able to pass. That's because control in the Senate is so narrow. It's actually split 50-50, and the Democrats only have control by virtue of Vice President Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote. And that is not enough of a margin to overcome the filibuster rule, which requires 60 votes to end debate before legislation can move to a final vote. That's the issue Democrats have been dealing with for 2 years. But now there are 35 seats up for election in the Senate, and all 435 are on the ballot in the House. And depending on how these elections go, the parties in power could change. There are really 6 major elections to watch in the Senate that it could impact who holds power for the rest of President Joe Biden's term. Those races are in Georgia between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker, Pennsylvania between John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz, Nevada between Catherine Cortez Masto and Adam Laxalt, Arizona between Mark Kelly and Blake Masters, Ohio between Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance, and Wisconsin between Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes and Ron Johnson. There'll be hard-fought battles between the candidates you hear, and potentially making for a long election night for each of their campaigns. In the House, where the margin is larger for Democrats, it's actually more likely power flips to Republicans. Going into this election, Democrats hold 220 seats and Republicans hold 212, with 3 vacancies where 1 person passed away and 2 people have resigned. So the Democrats have the majority by 8 seats. Now, it's sort of a general rule that whichever party doesn't hold the presidency will pick up seats in the House in the midterm elections, and it's usually a lot, like 26 seats a lot. That's been the average gain since the end of World War II. So that's why right now political polling site Project 538 predicts Republicans have a 4 in 5 chance, or an 80% shot, of taking control of the House. The Cook Political Report rates 33 seats as toss-ups that could go either way. The districts you see listed right here. 23 of those are currently held by Democrats and 10 are held by Republicans. And those will most likely be the ones that decide how power shifts in the House. This is Stephanie Haney, Legally Speaking. Okay, from blue to red now, we turn to Lena Lai, who is live in Columbus. She's there with the Columbus Republicans. Lena, good evening. As the polls are closing, we are now learning that there's a projection, a pretty big projection happening in Columbus. What are you finding?
Right. Just a few minutes ago, NBC News projects Governor Mike DeWine has secured a second term in office as governor. We are here at the Columbus Renaissance Hotel, the headquarters for the Republican statewide ticket, their election night watch party. And I'll let you take in the scene a little bit. More people have started to come in, not so much the candidates, but some of the support staff, members of the Republican Party. No surprise they're watching results coming in from Fox News, which also projected Governor DeWine's victory, which triggered a loud applause here in the ballroom here at the Renaissance. Now, we have to certainly talk about the U.S. Senate race. And if you look around this room, there are some 75 different media outlets, some as far away as Japan, who are here specifically to cover the U.S. Senate race between Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Ryan. Of course, certainly the balance of power in the Senate hangs on tight races such as this one. Stephanie, back to you. We'll keep watching and we'll keep you posted.
Thank you very much, Lena. Yes, we see obviously a lot of excitement there in Columbus as we take in one of the first big races called this evening here in Ohio. Lots more to watch. Thanks very much, Lena.
So let's bring in Marissa Saenz now. She is live from the Board of Elections warehouse in Cleveland as we just get this news about NBC projecting that Governor DeWine will win yet again. Marissa, what are you seeing where you are?
Christy, good evening to you. So now that polls have closed, we are seeing this warehouse really come to life. And these doors and access to this room for Election Day workers really is an indication of that. Take a look. Since we've been here throughout our 4, 5, and 6 o'clock hour broadcast, we've been telling you this place is going to get really busy. Well, now that the polls are closed, these ballots are going to make their way. And just as you've seen with what you just heard from Lena Lai, the projection, these ballots are going to continue to be counted, and you'll see those online on our website, WKYC.com. Now, I want to tell you, Cuyahoga County is one of 64 jurisdictions across 24 states being surveilled. The oversight is just to prevent voter intimidation and to make sure that there aren't any voting rights being violated. So I'll tell you, just probably within the last 30 minutes, we've seen Election Day workers coming in. This room is going to get busier. They've really told us, Board of Election employees have told us the 8 o'clock hour is when things are really going to pick up. So about 15 more minutes. So we'll continue to see this come to life, and we'll bring you the latest as it comes. Christy.
We appreciate it so much. Marissa, thank you. So let's get you out to Lydia Esparra. She is in Boardman with the Tim Ryan campaign. Lydia, polls are closed, we know. Still waiting for some numbers to come in, but what are you seeing there?
So, good evening, Christy. What we're seeing right now is people starting to filter in, obviously for the watch party. And you are correct. We are in Boardman at Mr. Anthony's. So Boardman is just outside of Youngstown, just outside of Niles, and that's where Tim Ryan lives. He lives in Niles. He voted in Niles this morning, and right after he voted, he went door to door making some final pleas to vote for him to send him to the U.S. Senate. Now, as I mentioned, the people are starting to filter in here. That, you know, the group is enthusiastic. They're hopeful because, as Lena mentioned, it is a very, very tight race. And NBC will not call that race unless 90% of the votes are going to be in there. Now, I know Cuyahoga County does a really good job at getting those votes in at a pretty good timely manner. But around the state, I can't answer that one, Christy. I just know, Christy, that tonight we are expecting Ryan to be here shortly before 9 when the party really gets going. And whether or not he speaks, it all depends on how the night goes. Back to you.
All righty. Lydia, we appreciate it so much. Thank you. Let's bring in David Brock. He's the chairman of Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. We are so grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
Want to get your reaction first and foremost to this projection about DeWine.
We have to be genuine and say that we aren't all that surprised. He was able to, in some ways, crossover. I mean, there was a great many independent-minded people who were happy with what he did in the first few months of COVID. Obviously, we as Democrats were not happy with what he did every other month during COVID, but and so I think it's not, and he's been an institution in the state. He was first elected, I think, the year after I was born. So he's been around, so quite frankly, it's not a huge surprise. But Nan Whaley really worked her tail off, so we were incredibly impressed with her, and especially this year with the news about the Dobbs decision. She was certainly trying to capitalize on that, but
Right.
DeWine's a significant force in this state.
So what are your thoughts about people like DeWine, leaders who have been in their position or who have such name recognition in this state and any ability to overturn them?
That's an incredibly fair question. It's difficult to be an incumbent no matter what, much less one who's been around for 46 years, hasn't committed a crime or any felonies or anything like that. I mean, he comes across as an all shucks likable guy. Certainly we're happy in Cleveland a year ago we saw someone from outside the institution go on to become mayor, right? So, and we think we're going to be able to replicate something similar tonight with the county executive. The chair of the Democratic Party this summer, myself, was certainly outside the institution. So we think it's possible, but this all has to start sort of smaller scale. But long term, I think it's significant, but someone like DeWine is incredibly tough to beat.
So what races are you watching tonight where you think that there could be somebody taking over for an incumbent, specifically a Democrat?
A Democrat taking over for a Republican in this state?
Yes.
Well, when it comes to incumbency, I suspect on the judicially speaking, certainly I think there's a few Democrats who can win here in Cuyahoga County for the Common Pleas Court. I think that Kevin Kelly can be the incumbent, but they were appointed, in most instances. Jennifer O'Donnell is taking on an appointed Republican. But I think that in this state, because it's become, the Republicanism has become so entrenched, I think Tim Ryan is the one to look at his ability to take down the sort of established Republican candidate that they have coalesced. I mean, Mike DeWine was even praising J.D. Vance the other day, So statewide, I think it's going to be difficult to defeat any of them, and you already heard the projections, but Tim Ryan would be the hope.
Right. So we have watched a lot over the last couple of years. But even just in the last several months, it's become very evident that the majority of people who go to the polls are most concerned about the economy.
Yeah.
With that said, why are Democrats harping on democracy? Do you think it's hurting them in some way?
Oh, I think that's a valid point. And I think that one of the reasons why Tim Ryan has gotten national coverage is because of the incredible discipline his campaign has shown in staying on that message that pocketbook politics is real. It's been real for almost a century. It's been real for almost a century, literally since FDR and the Great Depression. But I think also the Republicans aren't succeeding because, the Republican Party hasn't had a significantly new economic idea in 45 years, so it's not like they're running on those issues either. They're using culture war issues. But yes, I believe 100% the Democratic Party should be focusing probably a little bit more on the issues that affect people at their table and having to pay for children to participate in sports in the summer. These little things all add up. Trips to the dentist, which can really harm families' economics. That's the language we should be talking, I think, much more often. And I think that's why Tim Ryan has had some success in this race.
Has had some success, but why are other Democrats not doing so?
Well, I think that we're galvanized. That many Democrats are galvanized by cultural issues as well, and particularly women. I mean, they've had the rug swept out from under them with this Dobbs decision this year, right? So I certainly would never complain about arguing about the right to an abortion, and I think that needs to be waged. I think it isn't either or. I think it's both, and I think you can make the cultural issues. Some of the cultural issues an argument, but also the economic ones about raising the minimum wage. But you have to be repetitive, and you have to do this in sync. And the Republicans are in sync very well.
Consistency is a pretty solid tool, yes.
100%, yeah.
David, thank you so much. We appreciate He's going to stick with us, of course. And we're going to be talking today also about, as we get these numbers in, we will talk to you about how Ohioans voted, particularly on two different issues, issues 1 and 2, the proposed constitutional amendments. We want to take a look at both of these and start with issue 1. Tonight we will find out whether public safety will be considered when a judge is setting bail. This was proposed after the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that bail set at $1.5 million for a murder suspect was too high. If it passes before setting bail, Ohio judges will have to consider public safety, the seriousness of the offense, a person's criminal record, likelihood they'll return to court, and any other factor that the Ohio General Assembly may require. Now, let's talk about issue 2. It deals with who can and cannot vote in elections. So if this passes, issue 2, it would change wording in our state constitution from what it is now, that every citizen of the U.S. is entitled to vote in all elections, to saying that, quote, only citizens of the U.S. are entitled to vote in all elections. We know that 5 states have that only language in their state constitutions. We're talking about Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, and North Dakota.
So now we bring in our next guest. We have Dan Malthrop here, who is the CEO of the City Club of Cleveland. Dan, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
And
Thanks
for
having me.
people who are watching that aren't familiar with the City Club, how would you describe that?
We are a jewel of Cleveland, of Cleveland's civic kind of realm. We have been convening conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive since 1912. And we host visiting politicians, visiting authors, all sorts of folks. We've had 4 or 5 from Reagan to Obama sitting U.S. presidents speak. And last week we hosted Liz Cheney in conversation with Judy Woodruff of the PBS NewsHour.
Okay, so if we're talking politics, you're our guy, obviously, very entrenched in the space.
I'm one of many, yes.
Okay, well, we're very, very thankful to have you here.
Thanks.
So when we look at these 2 issues, issues 1 and 2, those are 2 of the things that all Ohioans will be voting on.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
have voted on, yeah.
Yes, have voted on. That's right. Everybody has voted on them already.
Polls have closed 20 minutes ago, just so you know. Although there could
I didn't mean to correct you, but I just like,
there could still be people standing in line, because if you got there at 7:30, you are still going to get to vote.
Absolutely true.
Okay, so let's talk first about issue 1. And the way that was worded, a little bit confusing there. So can you sort of break down for us what issue 1 is when we're looking at what we decided today?
Issue 1, sort of addresses the bail system in the state of Ohio and has asks, if it passes, would force judges to take public safety into account. It's, I think most of us, actually, most Ohio voters, folks that I've talked to, sort of assumed that that's what bail was all about, that they were taking public safety into account. But that wasn't actually in the Constitution, actually in the language. There are a lot of folks who are supporting this issue, and on both sides of the aisle. Tim Ryan, Nan Whaley were supportive of the issue. Folks who are against issue 1 include a lot of people on the criminal justice reform side of things who feel that the real conversation that we ought to be having about bail is whether or not we should be having bail at all. Most industrialized nations don't use a cash bail system at all, and bail and the data on whether or not bail works is somewhat questionable. So that's kind of how that one stacks up. Frankly, it seemed to come out of nowhere. There wasn't a whole lot of public dialogue leading up to legislators saying, hey, we need to put this on the ballot. It came out of a kind of a small, kind of a quirky thing that if you're not involved in the criminal courts, you might not have paid attention to.
Yes, there was that Ohio Supreme Court decision in January that talked about the bail being too high for a murder suspect situation. Now, there have been reforms on this too, as you mentioned. It's an interesting conversation, this particular issue of bail, because there is, or there has been previously, a safety consideration, but not tied to the bail amount. So can you talk to us about what works now, how it works right now for bail?
Sure, I can tell you what I know. I'm not the smartest person on this. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not, and I certainly wouldn't want to come to me for legal advice. But having said that, the judges have a lot of discretion in whether they can set a bail, set a bail amount, or even say release people on their own recognizance. And this would actually hamstring a lot of judges. It would take away some of the discretion that they have. So that's an important piece, an important consideration that I think voters who were trying to figure out how to vote on this, they really had to weigh that. Do I trust the voter? Do I trust the judges that I'm electing, who are also on this ballot, by the way, right? There was a huge number of judges that we selected today.
Yeah.
And over the last month, those of us who voted early. By the way, did you guys vote early?
Not early, no.
Did you vote today?
I went today.
Okay, thank you. I'm always curious about people's voting habits. I think it's just really important that we're transparent about what our habits are. I've gotten into the habit of going downtown and voting in person early. I like getting it done kind of as early as my schedule will allow. Anyway, if issue 1 passes, those judges that we just elected will have a lot less discretion to decide how bail should be set.
All right.
It's so interesting. I think you're right. I think most people thought that it was already protocol.
Yeah, the public safety was already kind of the thing that we focused on. Right.
Yeah. A lot of people thought it was the crux of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of a factor, right? So the way it's currently set up, there's a hearing if the prosecutor thinks that someone is a safety concern. So you don't even get to the question of bail because everyone at this point is guaranteed the right to bail in case unless there's some reason where they think safety is an issue. So it is it's just changing the process a little bit. Yeah, we were thinking about safety in a slightly different way, I guess, is my understanding of it.
Yeah. Issue 2 is really interesting, though. I mean, this whether or not non-citizens should be allowed to vote. It was another issue that really not a whole lot of people were paying attention to, but it sort of got tied in with the Republican concern about things about open borders and so forth, and this idea that somehow non-citizens were voting and swaying elections one way or another. I actually talked with Frank LaRose, our Secretary of State, this morning, and asked him, like, is this actually an issue? And he's like, no, it's actually not a big issue. He's in favor of issue 2 just because it provides some clarity. But it wasn't addressing some rampant movement by non-citizens voting. He said the biggest issue with non-citizens is when they accidentally register to vote. When they go to the DMV or the Bureau of Motor Vehicles and the motor voter sort of deal, and somebody hands them a voter registration, and they just fill it out. They just fill it out. And then the registration is processed, even though they haven't checked the box that says I'm a citizen, because boards of elections are like, why would I have this if this person didn't want to vote to register as a voter? And then it turns out that they're not eligible, and so there's a process for unwinding that. But that's the most common way in which non-citizens wind up getting involved.
Well, it is definitely very interesting. We have seen those amendments on other states' constitutions as well. Dan, thank you very much. We appreciate your
Thanks so much for having me. It's great.
All right, now let's check in with Bree Buckley, who is checking out the race for county executive. Bree, what are you seeing right now?
Live at Masthead Brewing Company in downtown Cleveland, where Chris Ronayne actually just walked in. He's greeting some of his supporters who have been filing in here all night. Now, he's the Democratic candidate for county executive. He's running against Lee Weingart, who was vying to be the first Republican to hold the title of county executive. Now, the spot is open after Armand Budish announced last November that he would not be seeking a third term, wanting to spend more time with family, is what he's told us. And one of the big talking points for this race is what's next for the county jail. Last month, the county council put those talks on hold, saying they want to wait for the new county executive to start at the beginning of next year. So, Stephanie, that means that whoever wins the race tonight could really have a big say in what the future is for the county jail.
All right. Thank you very much, Bree. We were just talking a little traffic flow here in the studio. Bree, we appreciate it, and we'll check back in with you later.
That's a great way to say it. A little traffic flow.
A little traffic conversation. And part of that traffic conversation was now we have the wonderful Lori McClung here with us. She's here to talk about the election and education, and she's the CEO of Advocacy and Communication Solutions. Thanks for being here, Lori.
Thanks for having me.
So what are you specifically watching tonight? What is of most concern to you?
I think big picture, I'm looking at education being in the political crosshairs in our country. So at the local level, we're going to see that in school board races. We're going to see that at the state school board level. We're going to see that on levies and ballots. But we're actually also just looking at the overall tenor of public education. And I think that's really what we're paying attention to. Are people going to be coming into office that are focused on issues around social emotional learning, mental health, or are they going to be coming into office thinking about critical race theory and comprehensive sex education and banning books, changing curriculum, things like that. So there's those really big, huge issues out there.
And as we take a look at these things, you know, some of the things we'll be talking with you about as they come in are the school levies across Northeast Ohio. A lot of those, when we look at the levies and the bond issues, what are some of the things that you want to see, that you hope to see as someone with experience in the education field that our students are maybe missing, that these might help provide for them?
So, you know, school levies pay for a variety of things. So on the operating levy side, so this is what keeps the doors open every day. When there's additional resources out there, we want to think about things like all-day kindergarten and AP courses and athletics, and whether or not you have to pay for athletics, whether or not there's transportation for those athletics, things like that. And so that's on the operating side. On the bond issue side, so the facilities, the infrastructure, you know, we have a lot of older buildings in an older state and in an older part of the state in terms of Northeast Ohio. And so we need resources for facilities and bonds and actually increasing the infrastructure opportunities. So that's what we're really paying attention to. And that's what you want for kids.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your insight. We'll be right back.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV.
Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy, and when they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. First, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on this election night. And we have one of projections that has come in from NBC News already. Governor Mike DeWine projected to win the governorship here in Ohio to return as governor. I'm Stephanie Haney along with Christy Paul and our good friend from Signal Cleveland, Mark Namick.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. And on that point of predicting an election in which if you go to the website right now, the Secretary of State, Nan Whaley, is still ahead. But that's really based on exit polling and data when they can look at where things come in. So it's just one of those little footnotes in history. They can call a race while the results still show the other person ahead.
I think that has confused people.
Yeah.
For a long time. How is it? I mean, really break down for us how they're able to do
well,
that.
You know, the AP is also calling it for the governor, and they're very sophisticated in theirs, just like NBC, and how they look at exit poll data that helps them project. And they also know the state really well. So they can look at even the initial, and they know what kind of total you should have on even some of those early absentee ballot totals that come in. So they can do it. But I think my kids could have called this one too, because it has been, you know, a very lopsided race, partly because of the issues. You have an incumbent with a lot of money, Democrats lacking. Really the star power that you hope in candidates to pull people out. Nan Whaley's really raised a lot of good issues. She's been on him quite a bit, which we'll talk more about in a moment, but it was not probably a difficult call, but they will follow their science on it.
Okay. That is a good point that we should note for everyone, though. Our official sources here tonight and at WKYC, we are following NBC News and AP projections, so that's why you'll hear us talk about those projections as the night goes on.
Absolutely. Let's get out to Lena right now. Lena, she is at the Ohio Republican camp at the Renaissance Hotel in Columbus. Talk to us about what you're seeing there, Lena. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys too. Yes, NBC News, Associated Press, and Mark Namick's kids projecting the Governor DeWine securing a second term in office. We are here at the Columbus Renaissance Hotel, the headquarters for the Ohio Republican ticket, their election night watch party. You can see the crowd has moved in, and no surprise, they're watching Fox News right now. But yeah, it's been really interesting to watch this crowd filter in, watching some of the results coming in. Fox News also projected Governor DeWine winning his second term, and that triggered a loud cheers amongst the crowd. You know, it really was not a surprise. I mean, DeWine consistently was ahead of Democrat Nan Whaley by a wide margin in polls leading up to this election, really despite the fact that Whaley has been considered a rising star in the Democratic Party. But you know what? It was really tough to overcome, with Governor DeWine being a longtime fixture in Ohio politics. He's been a congressman, lieutenant governor, a U.S. senator, and attorney general. And so now 75-year-old Mike DeWine goes on to being a twice elected governor, according to NBC News. So if we take a look around this room, I am surrounded by some 75 media outlets from all around the country and as far away as Japan and South Korea. Over here in the corner, I don't know if Randy, if you can see, there is a news crew from NHK, which is a national news outlet for Japan. And they are all focused here specifically on the race for U.S. Senate between Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Ryan. And this race is just one of a handful of national Senate races that could determine the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. They're also here because of the so-called Trump effect, the impact that former President Donald Trump has had in propelling Vance in a very crowded primary. The music is coming out. We don't know if this means that Governor DeWine is going to come out to speak to the crowd after already being projected to win. My hunch, though, is that he may decide to wait, because there is that confusing factor that you addressed earlier in that, the Secretary of State's
it's great to have you here.
Results show Nan Whaley technically ahead currently. So they're revving up the crowd right now. If Governor DeWine comes out to address the crowd, we will certainly cut in and let you guys know. For now, I'm going to send it back to you.
Are the reason why we win these elections.
Lena, we appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lena. Okay, now we will head to Boardman, where 3 News reporter Lydia Aspara is. We're heading to Boardman now to check in with Lydia. That's where U.S. Senate candidate Tim Ryan will be tonight. Lydia, tell us what's happening out there.
Well, good evening to you. And yes, I'm in Boardman, which is outside of Youngstown. So you can't really see it because there's a ton of cameras here. So over to my right, you can see there's a big crowd over there. The music started. They're really getting pumped up here. They had some early results, but they really don't mean anything. Right now, Tim Ryan is leading J.D. Vance, but that's basically because they're counting the mail-in ballots that are also called absentee ballots. And here in Cuyahoga County, they typically count those first. So you can't really say anybody's leading at this point, but at this point, he has 88,000 votes coming in to about some 30,000 to J.D. Vance. So the group is here is pretty optimistic. We're expecting Tim Ryan at any moment here shortly after 9 o'clock. And then he might address the people depending on how the situation goes. But as you guys know, it's election night. This is a tight race. It can go either way. There were a ton of people at the polls today. And of course, Ryan was expecting women to come out. And I was at the polls and they came out by the dozens. I don't know if it means anything, but he was courting a lot of the suburban women. He was courting a lot of the middle class. Did it work? We don't know. Back to you guys.
All right, Lydia, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate that. Let's talk to Mark about the conversation regarding the Senate race right now. Let's say, if Tim Ryan would win, that is a game changer for Ohio. Would that just send people's heads spinning?
Yes, it would, because would be credited with coming up with a message that seemed to break through for a Democrat, which is, as I've talked a little bit about before, and others have too, that he's really courted two types of voters. The country club Republican, that's a term that's been thrown around, is someone who's more moderate, not going to, maybe be an election denier. And then he's courted that working class Democrat that has converted and kind of gone over and voted for Trump in those last two elections. Those were people right out of Youngstown that felt abandoned by the Democratic Party, and he's really tried to stick on that message. He's gone out of his way to avoid Democrats. He did not campaign with the party this past weekend, which is a pretty traditional time where you get together. He was in Cleveland today campaigning with Mayor Bibb. That's safe territory for sure. And J.D. Vance has really tried to take advantage of the fact that Ryan is still a 10-term, congressman who's been, supporting Democratic policies, and those policies, in the Republicans' view, is why we have high inflation and a lot of other economic issues and gas prices. And he's been saying, hey, enough time. It's time for a change. If your pocketbook doesn't feel better, you should vote for us.
Mm-hmm. And we are hearing now that NBC News is saying that the race between Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance is still too close to call. It was expected to be a very tight race. We saw numbers flip-flopping between the two of them. And there has been some conversation here about Ohio returning to its status as a swing state.
Boy, that's a little optimistic. Now, I've been around covering politics long enough when it was a real swing state, going back to that 2004 race. And I always talk about that a little bit because I really got a good sense of how Ohio is. When you go south of Massillon, I traveled on President George W. Bush's bus against John Kerry in that race. And you would be down in southern Ohio and you wouldn't see necessarily a George Bush sign. You would see signs that say vote the Bible. And that would really give you a real sense of where, the mores of that population is, where people are, their heads are. And we were battleground, truly then. But because we haven't grown as a state in population as much as the Arizonas and others, we've lost congressional seats, so that gives us a little less weight. And when you look at trend lines of dominance in the Statehouse by Republicans and two elections in a row, and for the first time going back to the 60s, Ohio was not the bellwether. We voted for President Trump, but Biden won the White House, and those kind of markers feel like maybe we're not that reflection. There are some talking in this race, which is a Republican seat right now with Rob Portman, that's even close means Ryan must be special. But maybe it's just that J.D. Vance wasn't the strongest candidate that they could field. So there is a little bit back and forth. I would love us to be a battleground state because it does give us more attention from the candidates, allows us to actually help the viewers more because you cover the issues, they're in town more. But I can tell you in the early 2000s, you were seeing candidates, because I used to keep track of this for my job, between surrogates and the top candidates, you would have 50+ visits to your state in a campaign cycle. And you've not seen that in the recent time. But there's, it was a good state for President Trump. And right now, I think we're still red. But that's what elections are about. And maybe Democrats will catch fire after this one if they lose.
All right, we'll see what they do. Mark, stick around for us, of course, because we know one issue that's up for a decision by Ohio voters is issue 1. If passed, it would take public safety into account when setting an offender's bail, which I know a lot of people thought that was already part of the protocol. But let's take a look at those results right now. At the moment, most people are voting no. Lena Lai back to explain the impact issue that one will have on everyone from the criminal justice system to the courts.
On the November ballot, Issue 1, an Ohio constitutional amendment that would require courts to consider public safety when setting bail. Sounds pretty simple.
Keep Ohio safe.
Thank you.
After all, who could argue against public safety? But opponents like Summit Public Defender Andrea Whitaker say the issue is misleading.
The problem is that it's already a consideration. The problem is that it's a red herring.
Meaning designed to distract voters from the greater concern of bail reform, they say.
People with money will be able to get out. People without money will stay incarcerated. And it doesn't address really who is a risk to the public.
So what is bail? Also called bond. It's an amount of money given to the court for the temporary release of a defendant to ensure that the defendant returns to court.
People that we consider to be a danger to the community, they shouldn't get bail. The courts have now an ability to keep them in custody based on that concern.
The campaign for Issue 1 began following a 4-3 Ohio Supreme Court ruling in January after a $1.5 million bond was set for a murder suspect. The court ruled the high bail was unconstitutional, saying a court may not impose excessive bail for the purpose of keeping an accused in jail.
It was not common sense.
The 3 dissenting Republican justices joined a statewide bus tour to campaign for Issue 1, making a stop at the Cleveland Police Union Hall last Friday.
For 200 years, judges could consider public safety when setting bond. And all of a sudden, 4 members of the court I'm on said no. Where'd that come from?
Justice Pat DeWine, son of Governor Mike DeWine, says it's not that easy for judges to revoke bail, even if they believe public safety is at risk.
Only for certain felonies with certain standards of proof can you hold someone without bail. And that's appropriate in some situations, but there's other situations where a judge may want to set a higher bail, and judges in Ohio ought to have that flexibility.
Issue 1, a constitutional amendment in the name of public safety, now bringing the intent and purpose of bail into focus.
We have a way to protect our community, and a monetary bond is not how we do it.
All righty, so we do have some new information, and NBC now projecting that Issue 2 has passed. Mark, what's your initial
Well,
reaction to that?
let's remind viewers what Issue 2 is. That involved to put into the Constitution a prohibition of any legal non-residents from ever voting in an election.
Right.
And that comes from down in Yellow Springs outside of Dayton, a city council vote that was passed a couple years ago that would have at least allowed some non-citizens to vote on a local referendum. Secretary of State Frank LaRose stepped in and said, hey, that would run counter to state and federal law. Kind of case closed at that point. But the Republican legislature chose, because they had the power and the votes, to put it on as a constitutional amendment to just seal it one more time to say no. I think that one people understood a little bit more easily than Issue 1.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Issue 1 was confusing for a lot of people. The wording seemed intentionally confusing to some. How confident are you that people who went into that voting booth today knew how to vote correctly based on what they believe?
Based on what we've seen on state issues that people are unfamiliar with, and this would be one that you would read and you'd be looking at the wording about, like, likely to consider the issue of one's offense and bail. If people are confused and aren't sure, they typically will vote no. So that's not surprising right now that it seems to be trailing. And the other reason that I think made this difficult is there has not been a lot of campaigning, at least like you see compared to the candidates on TV, that would, maybe educate and in some cases maybe even intentionally confuse. But that's a benefit to the people putting any issue on the ballot, because if you don't know a lot about it, you might not. And I think we have other real legal experts here to give us more view on that.
Yes, we do have our next guest with us. Thank you very much for being with us. This is Professor Matthew Lacombe. He's with the Case Western Reserve University. He's a political science professor. So thank you very much, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
And I want to actually change gears with the conversation, because something I wanted to check in with you about is the fact that, we have this voting that has been done today, and it is using voting district maps that were declared unconstitutional by our U.S. Supreme Court. But we had to use something, so we had to use these maps. So what do you make of that?
Sure. So a little bit of background on that. There's a nonpartisan redistricting commission in Ohio that is tasked with establishing the districts that represent voters. That process is supposed to broadly sort of reflect the population of the state and not tilt advantage towards one party or the other. That district repeatedly came up with district maps, and then they were not approved by the Republican-led state government, and were consistently deemed. And then the maps that were approved by that state government were then deemed unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court. Then we needed to hold an election, and here we are with maps that were deemed in violation of the state constitution, but we had to have the election, so here we are, yeah.
But is there any recourse? Is there, I mean, what kind of, do you see any, is there a chance for any sort of appeal based on the Supreme Court?
I don't see much of a chance for recourse. I think the folks in the state legislature were sort of taking a chance that if they ran out the clock that we would end up with these maps, and I think they're probably going to be locked in moving forward. And it sort of sheds light on the challenges associated with trying to move towards nonpartisan districting, which is something that's really popular with many Americans to promote gerrymandering. But ultimately, many of these things, even when they are supposed to be nonpartisan, come down to partisan politics.
Quick note here before we move on to another topic. You know, there are 3 Ohio Supreme Court justices on the ballot. One of them is a Republican, the Chief Justice. She was actually key in the voting down of these unconstitutional maps, calling them constitutional. So hopefully we'll get a chance to chat with you more about that later. Thank you very much, Professor Lacombe.
Okay, so we want to talk about education. We know that is so important for so many of you who have kids in the system, and you're sitting down at night and you're doing your homework with them, and you're seeing the projects that they're turning in, and you're also seeing the buildings with which you drop them off to go in and spend their day. And there are a lot of complaints about whether things are up to par. So we brought on Lori McClung. She's the CEO of the Advocacy and Communications Solution. Lori, thank you so much again for being with us. We certainly appreciate it. Talk to us about what is on the ballot that could change things for families and for their children who are going into these classrooms, specifically when we talk about the facilities.
So on the facility side, there are several bond issues that are on the ballot across the region. And in some districts, they're in a situation where the state has approved a certain amount of money that they can get. If the local community does not pass that bond issue, they may actually fall out of line. So there's a line, there's a list at the state level that can give you actually matching resources. So if the bond issue doesn't pass locally, you could actually fall to the bottom of the list. You could actually be considered not qualified anymore. So when you think about the facilities and folks really want to see, more community centers or more athletic spaces or more open space classroom, that may not happen. We may still be, for some of our kids, be stuck in buildings that were built for a very different world, not enough appropriate technology. Or you might actually have buildings where you could put in technology, but it's cinder block in there.
Right.
And so the everything that you'd want to do is not going to be available. So the facilities piece is real. It's very important. And when we want to also have space that's developmentally appropriate for kids, you want to have small chairs and small bathrooms for small children, not actually in a building that was made for high schoolers. And so a lot of these bond issues actually help to retrofit buildings so that you can actually make sure that they're appropriate for the age of the kids that are in there.
Let me ask about the timing of this year's requests for more money. Sometimes it's just a renewal, might be additional, and depending on how they put it on, it might reset the value of that levy based on the new value of your home, and that scares people. And it's coming at a time when inflation in the economy and gas is hitting, so I wonder if you see these school districts worrying a little bit more this election than the normal just say no voters, and typically seniors. Their kids have already graduated from schools and they're a little bit less willing to support, even though the quality school supports the quality price of their homes. Do you see this year's election running up against that inflation worry?
Absolutely. It is something that is on every superintendent, every school board member, every staff person of an educational entity's mind. There is absolutely no way that people are not thinking about, okay, if I vote for this, that $20 a month could actually be used towards something else I need, whether it's additional utility cost as we go into winter, gas prices, whatever those things are. Absolutely, that is a great concern for school districts.
If you were going to pinpoint one key issue that could come out of renovating or getting more tax money, I think about the COVID and the remote and how many schools were so outdated in the technology. Do you think this will, as you mentioned, maybe drop people further behind on a list, but does it put them behind on education?
It absolutely does. I mean, when you think about the fact that many districts had to actually make sure that kids, it was a one-to-one situation. We wanted to have every child have something technology related and access to Wi-Fi, internet, their computers, iPads, whatever those things are. And the facilities money, bond issue money, helps to pay for some of that. And if there is not that technology, students can absolutely fall behind. And there's actually an interest from a lot of parents to have hybrid learning. Not all parents, some parents. Or some parents actually saw their children do better when they were more remote for whatever set of reasons. So it's critically important to be thinking about facilities, not just in terms of the bricks and mortar, but all the other things that go along with it academically.
All right. Thank you, Lori, so much. Hey, we're going to take a quick brief break for a live broadcast update with Russ Mitchell and Laura Queso. Don't go anywhere.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live.
Her taking the lead right now. Only 1% of precincts are reporting.
Right now, we're going to go live to Columbus, Ohio, where political reporter Lena Lies of the Republican Watch Party. Lena, how are they taking the news down there?
You know what? They're very happy to hear that Governor Mike DeWine has secured second term in office, according to NBC News projections. Just a few moments ago, Senator Rob Portman addressed the crowd here at the headquarters for the Republican ticket. He congratulated Mike DeWine, but then also talked about J.D. Vance. Take a listen.
You've gotten to know him. People of Ohio have gotten to know him. And the policies he's talking about are the ones that Ohioans care about, right? So people are concerned about inflation and the economy and their family budgets. They are concerned about what's going on at the border because we're essentially a border state. We're getting overrun with this fentanyl.
And that certainly energized the crowd. Rob Portman hoping that J.D. Vance will be his successor. But I got to tell you, they do differ on one key policy, and that is on Ukraine. J.D. Vance says that he would like to cut off U.S. aid to Ukraine. But as you know, Senator Rob Portman heads up the Senate Ukraine caucus. So in that sense, they do differ. But there you have it from Rob Portman tonight. Back to you guys.
Okay, Lena Lai in Columbus. We will see you soon.
Let's go now to Boardman, where Lydia Aspara is live at Tim Ryan's event. Lydia, right now, Tim Ryan is leading the polls. How are there? What's happening?
Well, so the mood is really good tonight here, Laura. They're happy, and of course that lead, it really doesn't mean much because a lot of that is like absentee ballots, and those are always counted early, the mail-in ballots. So we really have to wait to see how the counties do. But so far, the party here is going well, and they are anxious for the end results. Back to you.
All right, Lydia Aspara, live for us tonight. Lydia, thank you.
A number of races, Chris Ronayne along with Lee Weingart, that race about 14% of the vote in. Right now, Chris Ronayne has about 70% of the vote. Still too close to call at this point. We're going to be back in about 25 minutes. Coming up online, Stephanie, Christy, and Mark will return.
We'll see you in a bit. Thanks for joining us.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. What's new?
Get up to speed on the day's top talkers at 4.
What's now?
At 5, deep dives on what's happening.
And what you need to know.
The day's top news at 6.
What matters most to Northeast Ohio. Weekdays starting at 4 on 3. What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
The new and improved WKYC Plus, now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch live local newscasts, get extended breaking news coverage, and see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus, now on Roku and Fire TV. Go. It's a simple verb with a much deeper meaning. Go with purpose. Go quickly. Go to school. Go to work. Go for it. And sometimes you just really have to go. Some mornings are harder than others. We should know. That's why every morning on 3 News Go, Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go.
Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy, and when they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. First, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Every morning on 3 News Go, Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go.
We are certainly glad for your company. Welcome back to our streaming special on this election night. I'm Christy Paul here with Stephanie Haney and Mark Namick. We want to get straight to some of the results that we have learned about so far tonight. NBC projecting that DeWine will win the governorship, also projecting that the Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance is just too close to call. Those are the latest numbers you see there on your screen, but NBC projecting that it's too close to call to do anything about that now. Also, NBC projecting that issue 2 has passed, or will pass, we should say.
Yes, and as we continue here, we are talking about Marissa Saenz and what she is doing live at the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. So let's get a check-in with her now. Hi, Marissa.
Stephanie, good evening to you. We're at the warehouse, which remains busy, and it's going to stay this way through the night. The tabulation room, you're on the 2nd floor. Take a look for yourself. You can see it right there. Election day workers are here right now. You hear those machines going, scanning ballots. Now, as polls close, this warehouse began its shift. Ballots now come here, are processed and posted online as unofficial results. The unofficial results you're seeing now, according to the Board of Elections website, are mostly mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, processing election day votes. You'll see some of them trickle in today, but it's going to take some time. Now, we know that the Department of Justice was watching elections in Cuyahoga County. It was one of 64 jurisdictions across the country. So certainly in talking with officials here at the Board of Elections, this is one of the most important steps, and they're going to take their time, and they'll likely be here through the early morning hours. But more to come here, and we'll bring you the rest throughout the evening. Stephanie?
Thank you very much, Marissa. We do appreciate them taking their time, going very slowly, because, you know, there are a lot of votes to come in. They've got all of those mail-in ballots, early in-person voting. They got to tabulate all of that. So very thankful, and we will be patient.
Yeah, we have Bernie Moreno joining us now. He was a candidate for the U.S. Senate in the primary race, which seems now like years ago, doesn't it?
It was a long time ago. Politically, like 90 years ago.
So I guess we'll certainly we'll put that on the table for the Republican primary so people will know where you're coming from. But as someone who was in that race, now stepping out, how do you see, let me have you evaluate the Tim Ryan race from his messaging to what you've seen as a candidate who would have been paying attention to that. How do you think he's done to keep it in what we just saw was a race that's too close to call right now?
Yeah, I think what Tim Ryan has done is created a theoretical Democrat. I'd call it like a 1980s Democrat. It's somebody who's very rational, somebody who's pro-worker, pro-America, pro-union, not looking at tax cuts, for example, maybe a little bit of government investment. But that's not the person who voters saw because they're able to see his record. So he voted much more extreme, 100% with Pelosi and Biden. So I think they saw that. I think the differences between today and the 1980s is that people have these devices where you can go and actually fact check and see that. So I think that's where his demise came from.
All right, so how do you evaluate J.D. Vance's campaign? He, might be viewed as kind of an outsider because he wasn't here all the time. He has roots here, and we know him from being the author. But what, do you see in his campaign that has worked well for him and how that's been running up against what you found as a candidate in the primary?
Well, I think what voters want is new people to go to Washington, D.C. They don't want a political class. So I think that what they see in J.D. Vance is somebody who's new, never been there before, fresh face, young person, new ideas, certainly more adept about technology and where the country's going. And I think that's the appeal. I think that's what people saw. Do you want somebody who's been in politics their whole life, or do you want somebody who's been...
And that's been, I think, JD's closing argument. It's been much of the campaign. I think you've got to let the campaigns and the ads do all that negative beating up on both sides, which, of course, was the majority of this. And I think it's always worth pointing out that there are negative ads because it makes a difference. It works. They wouldn't be doing it if it didn't. But as you look at the Senate race, Do you think it's a loss to a point we brought up earlier that we somehow become either a battleground or a blue state if J.D. Vance loses?
I think that won't happen. I think Republicans are going to resoundingly win in Ohio tonight. I think we're going to see that. As I travel the state, all 88 counties, people are about three issues in this race: inflation, the border, and crime. And those three things are not doing very well right now. And as a result, you're going to see a big swing towards Republicans tonight.
And we'll be able to look at some of those exit polling to see, how those ranked up against, the big social issue from the summer, which was abortion, and for a while was driving some of the Democratic messaging and turnout. But we know, again, inflation and other issues are in the way on top of mind. But we're going to get more of that in probably 12 hours. So,
sure we will.
Thank you, Bernie, for being here, and
Thank you for having
we'll
me.
talk again.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you here, certainly. So I want to let you know that I was able to speak with Cuyahoga County Democratic Party Chair David Brock earlier today. Here's what he had to say. Let's bring in David Brock. He's the chairman of Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. We are so grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
Want to get your reaction first and foremost to this projection about DeWine.
We have to be genuine and say that we aren't all that surprised. He was able to, in some ways, crossover. I mean, there was a great many independent-minded people who were happy with what he did in the first few months of COVID. Obviously, we as Democrats were not happy with what he did every other month during COVID. But and so I think it's not. And he's been an institution in the state. He was first elected, I think, the year after I was born. So he's been around. So quite frankly, it's not a huge surprise. But Nan Whaley really worked her tail off. So we were incredibly impressed with her, and especially this year with the news about the Dobbs decision. She was certainly trying to capitalize on that, but
right.
DeWine's a significant force in this state.
So, what are your thoughts about people like DeWine, leaders who have been in their position or who have such name recognition in this state, and any ability to overturn them?
That's an incredibly fair question. It's just difficult to be an incumbent no matter what, much less one who's been around for 46 years, hasn't committed a crime or any felonies or anything like that. I mean, he comes across as an all-shucks likable guy. Certainly we're happy in Cleveland a year ago, we saw someone from outside the institution go on to become mayor, right? So, and we think we're going to be able to replicate something similar tonight with the county executive. The chair of the Democratic Party this summer, myself, was certainly outside the institution. So we think it's possible, but this all has to start sort of smaller scale. But long term, I think it's significant, but someone like DeWine is incredibly tough to beat.
So what races are you watching tonight where you think that there could be somebody taking over for an incumbent, specifically a Democrat?
A Democrat taking over for a Republican in this state?
Yes.
Well, when it comes to incumbency, I suspect on the judicially speaking, certainly I think there's a few Democrats who can win here in Cuyahoga County for the Common Pleas Court. I think that Kevin Kelly can be the incumbent, but they were appointed, in most instances. Jennifer O'Donnell is taking on an appointed Republican. But I think that in this state, because it's become, the Republicanism has become so entrenched, I think Tim Ryan is the one to look at his ability to take down the sort of established Republican candidate that they have coalesced. I mean, Mike DeWine was even praising J.D. Vance the other day, So statewide, I think it's going to be difficult to defeat any of them, and you already heard the projections, but Tim Ryan would be the hope.
Right. So we have watched a lot over the last couple of years. But even just in the last several months, it's become very evident that the majority of people who go to the polls are most concerned about the economy.
Yeah.
With that said, why are Democrats harping on democracy? Do you think it's hurting them in some way?
Oh, I think that's a valid point. And I think that one of the reasons why Tim Ryan has gotten national coverage is because of the incredible discipline his campaign has shown in staying on that message that pocketbook politics is real. It's been real for almost a century. It's been real for almost a century, literally since FDR and the Great Depression. But I think also the Republicans aren't succeeding because, the Republican Party hasn't had a significantly new economic idea in 45 years, so it's not like they're running on those issues either. They're using culture war issues. But yes, I believe 100% the Democratic Party should be focusing probably a little bit more on the issues that affect people at their table and having to pay for children to participate in sports in the summer. These little things all add up. Trips to the dentist, which can really harm families' economics. That's the language we should be talking, I think. much more often. And I think that's why Tim Ryan has had some success in this race.
Has had some success, but why are other Democrats not doing so?
Well, I think that we're galvanized. That many Democrats are galvanized by cultural issues as well, and particularly women. I mean, they've had the rug swept out from under them with this Dobbs decision this year, right? So I certainly would never complain about arguing about the right to an abortion, and I think that needs to be waged. I think it isn't either or. I think it's both, and I think you can make the cultural issues, some of the cultural issues, an argument, but also the economic ones about raising the minimum wage. But you have to be repetitive, and you have to do this in sync. And the Republicans are in sync very well.
Consistency is a pretty solid tool, yes.
100%. Yeah.
David, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right, great conversation there with the Democratic Party Chair, David Brock. And now we're joined with Dan Malthrop. He's the CEO of the City Club of Cleveland. Thanks for being with us again tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, I think one of the big conversations that is happening now is about the lack of some conversation that we've seen in dialogue between the candidates. As someone who's been on the Ohio Debates Commission,
oh yeah,
what can you speak to?
You mean actual debates?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, it was a surprise that Governor DeWine didn't debate this year at all. The primary, I kind of understood what was going on, but all of us who were involved, I chair the board at the Ohio Debate Commission, and all of us who were involved thought he's going to say yes because he's Mike DeWine. He believes in institutions. He believes in small d democratic norms. He loves the Republic, and he loves politics. He'll do the debate. And also, there were a lot of reasons to think that it wouldn't look good for him to not debate the first woman running for governor in the state of Ohio. But at the same time, there's some really big issues that he didn't want to talk about. And I think that in the end, the calculus and we saw this across the country, the calculus for incumbents and front runners in races is don't debate unless you have to. And because there is more to lose than there is to gain. And that's just how the thinking goes. The Atlantic just did a piece about how the consultants have won. Basically, that was the premise of the piece. The consultants, this is the year, 2022, is the year that consultants won in all the races because they convinced the most candidates not to debate.
Kind of similar to this because without that engagement, it may be, with debates that doesn't engage the voter. Voter turnout is not looking great, at least in Cuyahoga County and elsewhere. What do you see, Dan, and how do you think this is playing into election results?
It would be a totally different game if, So if there was real turnout, the kind of turnout that we've seen in really high performing places, if that was happening inside the city of Cleveland, there are wards, not a mile, 2 miles from where we're sitting right now, where turnout is below 15%. Below 15%. Wow. So imagine you and all of your neighbors and you're the only one on the block who's going to vote. That's what that looks like and feels like. That's poll workers spending all day to help 20 people.
And that's a big issue that I think will follow this night, I think going forward with both the consultants and the party chair and all that. Thanks, Dan, for coming in and sharing us that.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate it. So we want to take you to Lena live right now. She's with the Tim Ryan campaign in, I'm sorry, that's Lydia. Lena is at the Ohio Republican camp in Columbus. And as we said, NBC is projecting that DeWine will win. You had a lot of music going on there. We were waiting to see if we were going to hear from the governor. What are you expecting now?
Well, we don't know when Governor Mike DeWine will address the crowd. My hunch is that it will be later because as Mark Namick had pointed out, the returns are still coming in. And on the Ohio Secretary of State's website, it shows Democrat Nan Whaley leading in the race. But NBC News projecting right now that Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has secured his second term in office. Now, let me take you to have you take a look at some of the crowd right here. This is the election night watch party for the statewide Republican ticket. So it's not just the governorship. It's also the Ohio Supreme Court justices. 3 Republican justices are looking to fill the 3 seats that are open. on the Ohio Supreme Court, which could play a pivotal role in hot button issues, including abortion and redistricting. But the media that's congregated here specifically is to cover the U.S. Senate race between Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Ryan. Still too close to call. Don't know yet when the candidates will come out to address the crowd, but we will be here all night to keep you posted. Back to you guys.
Lena, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just want to make one update. We do have enough results. Mike DeWine, at least now on paper, is up 56%. So some of those votes have caught up to that projection.
All right, thank you very much, Mark. And now we will check in with Lydia Esparra. She's live in Boardman with Tim Ryan's watch party. Hi, Lydia.
Hello, and yes, the party's really going now. So I have an update right now. Early in-person voting, you have Tim Ryan leading. That's completed at 100%. He has some 105,000 votes there, up to J.D. Vance's some 36,000. However, they're still counting the mail-in, the absentee ballots. Those are not completed. And it's really important to know that these ballots are always counted first, and they typically go Democrat. They typically go in for shut-ins. They typically go in for older people. But it doesn't really mean that Tim Ryan is leading the race. It just means that he's doing well with early voting and mail-in. And of course, Mark, you can attest to this, that I know for a long time Cuyahoga County had a messed up Board of Elections, but they have really, in the last 10 to 12 years, have fixed that, and they do a really good job getting these ballots in, getting them counted, and they're pretty accurate. So I can't see anybody complaining about how the voting is going right now, because as you know, Mark, this is how it typically goes. Back to you.
Yeah, the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections has not had problems. They've become a really good example of how things run. The issue of why we can't predict the outcome of this race right now depends on where votes are coming in from. The rural counties sometimes take longer. Right. In big counties, it takes time to get those votes in from each precinct, but it's a rolling thing. There is some math to it, so eventually when we see enough balance around the state, they will be able to make a prediction. But you're right, Lydia, you are seeing a good Board of Elections because I know we'll be on it if they're not running well.
Lydia, thank you.
And you know, and we have been on them for years and years. Right, bye.
Oh, Lydia, thank you. We appreciate all the updates.
All right, we are joined now by the illustrious Leon Bibb. We're so happy to have you with us tonight.
Oh, good to come in on another election night. Election night's always exciting in this town, in this state, always.
Leon, you've been here a long time, a little bit longer than me, but I like to think I've been around a long time. We always hear the same thing. This election matters more than any other election in history. I've been hearing that for 27 years.
Well, I've been hearing it for 40 years. This is the election of the century, all the way back. My first election that I remember covering in Cleveland was 1980, Carter and Reagan presidential election. You know, when I first started here at Channel 3 in 1980, 1979.
So what is standing out to you at this point tonight?
Well, what's standing out to me, one of the things that concerns me certainly is the low voter turnout in a lot of Cuyahoga County. And I think all that's been talked about over the last many months is about the importance of the vote, people getting involved, people getting into the process. And I think that stands out. As the way it's been going, I expected the DeWine was going to do well. I expected that, looking at the polls. So I think that one is the one that kind of stands out for me right now.
Do you think not having a stronger Democratic ticket is behind, and that's often without someone to motivate you and get you excited? But we know even in the mayor's race in Cuyahoga County, or in Cleveland, but we saw some turnout as low, less than 10% in a mayor's race, which has the greatest impact on any resident is your local.
Right, you know, and so the last time I saw a huge, big turnout was in the Obama years, Obama's first election in 2000, 2008, and long lines of people, but now the lines were not quite as long, so. I think that's a concern, and I think people have to really buy into this thing about the importance of the vote. I'm a student of a little bit of political history in a way, not as much as you, Mr. Mark Namick. You're the expert around here. But I'd heard a story some years ago that when President Truman left office in 1953, when Eisenhower came in, this is before my time now. But when I heard the story that he and his wife Bess went to the train station for the train back to Independence, Missouri, he was surprised at the number of people who were there to greet him as one president is leaving the White House and another one's coming in. And they asked him, "What do you think about stepping down from the high office?" And he said, "That's where you got it wrong, journalists. I am stepping up. I'm becoming one of the voting people." You see, it's the people who run this country and not the politicians, is what Truman said. So that rings in my mind the way I first heard that story many years ago.
And that's a great story to balance with what our former guest just said, Dan Moulthrop, about the consultants being in charge of that and having been the winners in this most recent election. And depending on how big of a upset everything is tomorrow, I think you're going to see reactions, meaning the parties are going to try to recalibrate, particularly the Democrats, because I think, at least in Ohio, it's going to be ugly for them.
It is uphill for Democrats in this state. The only one who seems to be up there is Sherrod Brown, the U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown. But he is surrounded by Republicans just about everywhere he turns in this apparently a red state.
Leon, quickly, you're so great at giving us perspective. In about 30 seconds, can you tell us what it was that excited people in the past and how we can maybe get back there and get those bodies in the booths?
I don't know. Maybe it was the candidates. Maybe it was the candidates. And I think a lot of people are looking for charisma. I think they're looking for a charismatic leader, and I think Obama brought that. I think Reagan brought that. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, but sometimes you have to look beyond that.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for your perspective, Leon. We always appreciate it from you.
Good to be here. Good to be here. On
we always learn
night.
from Leon. We always learn from Leon.
We do indeed. All right, we're going to take another quick break. We have a check-in with our TV audience with Russ Mitchell and Laura Queso, and then we'll be back with more here on our streaming special for Election 2022.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
Your time now is 8:56. I'm Laura Queso in with Russ Mitchell.
It is good to be with you tonight. Let's going to go right to the Senate race and get some look at the results at this point. Right now, Republican J.D. Vance is 45% of the vote. Democrat Tim Ryan is at 55%, 9% precincts reporting at this point.
Let's go live now to our Lydia Esparra in Boardman right now with Tim Ryan's camp. Lydia, what's happening out there?
Well, they're pretty excited because some votes did continue to come in, as you said. But also, I should mention, early in-person votes, that's completed. So you have Ryan leading 105, a little over 105,000 to J.D. Vance's 36,000. But they're still counting the mail-in ballots. So not until the votes of today are counted will you really know what this race is all about. Back to you.
Hi, we are live in Columbus at the Renaissance Hotel, the headquarters for the Ohio Republican ticket. Behind me, you see the crowd gathered in their election night watch party. We have not heard or seen J.D. Vance yet, so we're still waiting for him, as well as Governor Mike DeWine, who just over an hour ago was projected to secure his second term in office, as projected by NBC News. Just a half an hour ago, Senator Rob Portman addressed the crowd and helped to energize this crowd as this crowd continues to watch the results filtering in on their favorite network, Fox News. They have virtually not reacted whenever they show the results from the U.S. Senate race, but they still remain hopeful that J.D. Vance will pull off a victory here. But it's all right. That's it for now. We'll keep watching the results. Let's send it back to you, Laura.
All right, Lena live for us tonight. Lena, we'll check back in with you soon. Thank you.
And again, I want to give you an update in the Cuyahoga County executive race. Still too close to call. It looks like Lee Weingart has about 10% of the vote. Right now, Chris Ronayne about 90% of the vote. Again, really too close to call in that race. Stick with 3 News on air and online. We'll bring you the race results all night long.
We have a lot more coming up. We'll keep updating you throughout the night. And tonight on What's Next at 11 o'clock, stay with us.
Go. It's a simple verb with a much deeper meaning. Go with purpose. Go quickly. Go to school. Go to work. Go for it. And sometimes you just really have to go. Some mornings are harder than others. We should know. That's why every morning on 3 News Go, Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. What's new?
Get up to speed on the day's top talkers at 4.
What's now?
At 5, deep dives on what's happening.
And what you need to know.
The day's top news at 6.
What matters most to Northeast Ohio. Weekdays starting at 4 on 3. The new and improved WKYC Plus, now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch live local newscasts, get extended breaking news coverage, and see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus, now on Roku and Fire TV.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku and Fire TV. Watch local newscasts live or on your schedule. And see local programs and specials. The new and improved WKYC Plus. Now on Roku. Every morning on 3 News Go. Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go.
Comes down to it.
Eric Brewer's getting crushed, darn it.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Election 2022 streaming special here on WKYC Plus and the WKYC YouTube page. I'm Stephanie Haney, along Russ Mitchell and Mark Namick.
It's great to be with you. You guys have been doing a great job all night. We've been watching back in the newsroom.
Thank you.
The polls are closed right now. So what are we doing, guys? Are we going to Lena right now? Okay. Lena Lai is in Columbus right now. She's at the Republican Party headquarters. Let's listen in.
Get through my thank yous because they mean a lot to me, because without the support of many, you can't do this. And my first thank you goes to the amazing Tina Husted, my wonderful wife. I want to thank my mom and dad who could not join us tonight. They adopted a little baby 55 years ago, and thanks, Mom and Dad. My children, I love them dearly. They're all here with us tonight. My son Alex and our daughter-in-law Kathleen. Great to be with. And the amazing Kylie and Katie Husted. So I also want to say thanks to all the volunteers and supporters across all 88 counties. One of the things we do is we run a campaign 88 counties wide, and there were so many of you that were out there with us, both in the governing phase and in the campaign phase. Thank you so much. Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. The campaign team, we love you. You're awesome. It's nothing like running a winning campaign, is there? And Tina and I thank God, and we thank the people of the state of Ohio for giving us another chance to serve as Lieutenant Governor. Thank you very much. So you win your first term on hope. You win your second term when you deliver on that hope.
And we are listening to Lieutenant Governor John Husted speaking about, again, we did see earlier tonight, NBC News had projected Governor Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor John Husted will be returning to office. They have won re-election.
And Mark Namick, no surprise here.
No, I mean, you have the biggest name in state politics in DeWine. He's been around, again, forever, campaigning incumbent advantage, money advantage, an economy that's working for people who want change. And, as we talked about earlier tonight, someone who avoided potentially making any mistakes by avoiding those debates. Again, I think you can debate the issue of whether or not voters, get shortchanged, because there were some big issues that former Mayor Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley was wanting to raise. Big issues on gun control, abortion issue, big differences between her and DeWine on that. But I think it was never a question, just given the power of that incumbency and his legacy, and having a weaker ticket overall on the Democratic side, which hurts the top of the ticket as well as the bottom.
Let's talk about Nan Whaley for a second. This race was called pretty much right when the polls closed tonight for Mike DeWine. Nan Whaley, former mayor of Dayton, really respected in that area. This is the second time she's run for governor. I mean, what's next for her? Does she get back in the race in a few years? What are we thinking there?
She's carved out a voice. She worked really hard on this race. I think she really tried to raise the issues of not only women's rights, but being for the working class, trying to carry and find a new message for Democrats that might penetrate in what has now become a red state. I can see her being in the conversation, but I think politically, statewide, I think this is hard to get over. But I don't rule any of them out. We've seen candidates come back time and time again.
Right. Right. Don't have Dick Nixon to kick around anymore. Right. You know what happened there.
That's right. But we'll hear more from her. I think her campaign was ready for what we're seeing politically here in Ohio and across the country.
Want to go to Lydia Sparrow now?
Yeah, let's check in with Lydia Sparrow. She's in Boardman tonight with Tim Ryan's campaign. And of course, the last we've seen on this race, it was projected too close to call from NBC News. Lydia, what are you seeing there?
And you're right, it is a race that's very too close to call. So far, Ryan leads by some 65,000 votes against J.D. Vance, but that's because the early voting is in, the mail-in ballot is in, and they closed all of those out. Now the real race begins with all the voting that happened today. So you're going to look at, he might win Cuyahoga County. He's probably a shoe-in here in Mahoning County. He might win Warren County, or that's in Cincinnati, Warren, which is right next to Youngstown and Niles, because he's from there. But you got to look at the bigger picture, because what's really red is the Toledo area, outside Cincinnati, Cincinnati proper, Dayton, and a lot of those little urban areas out there. So that's where they had very heavy voting. So it's really a wait and see with this. But the people here are very optimistic, because typically who votes early voting and mail-in voting are, elderly people who can't get out, the shut-ins who can't get out, college kids. And Ryan felt that he would do good in that area. Is it enough? Is it enough to make him surpass J.D. Vance with other votings from today? We don't know. We won't know until that final vote is counted. Back to you guys.
Lydia, you say the mood there remains very upbeat.
Very upbeat, because honestly, Russ, you and I both know how this early voting goes in the mail-in ballot. It always misleads people that you're really leading. The real voting, as I told you, begins after those votes are counted, and then you'll see. It was very heavy voting today. A lot of people were out, a lot of lines, but I still think it's going to be a pretty tight race.
Okay, Lydia Sparrow, thanks a lot.
Yeah, and worth noting that J.D. Vance is up in Warren County, and that's not necessarily a surprise given how Trump really captured pretty much all the counties, anything even remotely rural, and Democrats traditionally rely on the major counties to make up that difference. That's why this race is very close. J.D. Vance leads in Warren County. 56 to 43, or 43%. So that remains tight, and we're going to see that in a lot of outlying counties.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to Lydia's point, when we talk about that early voting and we see those are the first ballots to get counted. NBC News political analyst did say 49% of the early votes in Ohio were people who were registered Democrats, 42% were registered Republicans. So that might account for some of that early shift that looks like it's more in Tim Ryan's favor, but of course we're just going to have to see what happens.
Yeah, the mood of these parties earlier, as Lydia pointed out, is really interesting. I remember years ago I was covering a race for Congress. I forget where. Wait a minute, just for a second. We were told that Mike DeWine, who has been reelected tonight, is coming to the podium. This is in Columbus. There's the governor. He's being reelected to a second term. I'll tell you my great story, which I'm sure you can't wait to hear after the governor speaks. But how about that? Governor DeWine tonight with his family there. Anyone in Pat DeWine, his son, in the Supreme Court? Is he one? Mark, have you heard anything about that?
It's very. I'll look it up while we're listening to him right now.
All right, let's listen to the governor.
Guys, hold on. We haven't all got up on stage yet, so this is a process with the DeWine family. It takes a little while. John, thank you for that very, very generous introduction. We're very, very grateful. To the people of Ohio, thank you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to continue to serve. And thank you for giving the most precious thing you can, and that is time and opportunity for us to continue to work for you. Thank you for that time. Ohioans, my friends, Ohioans have been through a lot, as all Americans have in the last few years. But we are a resilient, tough people, and we move forward. When I talk to businesses about coming to Ohio, and John and I do this all the time, we have a lot of good stories and a lot of good things to tell, whether it's our abundance of water, our location, our great infrastructure, and we go on and on. But in the end, it comes down to the most important thing, and that is our people. We have great people in Ohio. So to the people of Ohio, thank you. Thank you for giving us this chance. I want to thank my longtime girlfriend here. I made the mistake the other day. I introduced her and said we've been married 25 years, and I don't know, but it's really 55. And look, she's my best friend. She's someone Fran and I've known each other since first grade. And obviously, I wouldn't be here today having this opportunity to serve without her. She has, there's no one that can outwork her. There's no one who has more passion for what she does, and no one has more passion for children than Fran DeWine. And so we are blessed, and I'm blessed, and I think Ohio's blessed to have her as First Lady. She had a passion for literacy, getting children ready for kindergarten. And the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, those books are now reaching over half the children in the state of Ohio, 0 to 5. Let me thank our children, our grandchildren. Calvin makes an entrance here. Our children and our grandchildren and Fran's brothers and sisters. I thank them for their support over the years, but frankly, even more important, I thank them for the lessons that they have taught me and what I've learned from all of them and the inspiration I get from each one of them. I want to thank our volunteers. There are volunteers in the room today who were with us in that first race in 1976. That's pretty amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And for those of you who came after that, and for all of you who have volunteered and helped us over the years, the literally thousands of people who have done this, we're very, very, very grateful. To John and Tina, I thank you. We have a great team. They are a great team, and we have a great lieutenant governor. You know, when we started down this pathway, this partnership, and it is a partnership with John, myself, you never know how things will really work out. We thought they would be great. We thought the chemistry was there. We thought we complemented each other. But it's even better, frankly, than anyone could have ever imagined. John Husted makes a huge difference every single day for the people of the state of Ohio. And I am honored to have him by my side for 4 more years. My friends, this is our time. This is Ohio's time. It's Ohio's time in history. Things are coming our way. This is a great manufacturing state. And again, the thing, though, you can talk about all the assets that we have, but the most important thing is the people. Think about it. We're a state of people, we just get up in the morning, we go to work. We're people who get things done. We solve problems. We don't whine about them. We just go solve them. We make things. We invent things. we do things. That's the asset that we have. There's no better place to live. There is no better place in this world to live. There's no better place to live than Ohio. There's no better place to raise a family. There's no better place to start a business. There's no better place to grow a business. And right here in the Buckeye State, this is the place to be. But yet we have work to do, and we have unfinished business. I have a friend who always says, Mike, you got to remember to tell people why you're doing things and why. What's the why? And the why is this. We have unfinished business in front of us. We have things that we need to do. And the job of the governor is to lay before the people of the state of Ohio the unfinished business of the state. And in the next weeks and months ahead, I intend to continue to do that. Will continue to push forward and to lead and to talk about the things that we have to do. Our goal for every person in this state is for them to live up to their God-given potential, to remove all barriers that are hindering them from doing that. Because Ohio is the land of opportunity. And we must make sure that every Ohioan has that opportunity. We must make sure that every child, no matter where they're born, no matter who their parents are, has the opportunity to be up to speed by the time they get to kindergarten. Prenatal care, postnatal care for the moms, reading, good quality child care, all of these things so they get that start by the time they start kindergarten. But it's not just that. It's all the way through. Ohio will not be where it needs to be when we still have children who are not prepared. Ohio is not the state that we want it to be until we find all children who graduate from high school have some pathway. Whether that be a pathway through college, to college and through college, or whether that be a pathway in some other career, high tech, some of our tech schools, whatever that may be, but again, a pathway. And Ohio will not be the great state that it can be when we leave people behind because they have an addiction problem, or when we leave people behind because they have an untreated mental health problem, and because it will not be the state it needs to be when if you have a child, you have to wait to get mental health assistance, or you have to wait and cannot get the help you need in regard to drug addiction. So a great state, we're moving forward, we have work to do. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that work. God bless Ohio. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Governor Mike DeWine, reelected to a second term tonight. We were talking just a moment ago. Whatever you think about Governor DeWine politically, he has got to be one of the most accomplished politicians in the country. Two-term governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. He served in Congress. Mm-hmm. He was in the United States Senate. So an incredible career this man has had.
Yeah, and I think, as he pointed out, I think since 1976, he's been in office, or running for office. I think before we cut in, we were going to look into the governor's son, who is up for U.S. Supreme Court, or Ohio Supreme Court, running for re-election. He is up 54% over his Democratic opponent, and he is expected to win as well.
Yeah.
Governor DeWine has certainly worn a lot of hats. He'll continue to wear the hat as governor for the next 4 years. And now let's bring in a guest who joined us earlier. This is Professor Matt Lacombe with Case Western Reserve University, a political science professor. Thanks for being with us.
It's good to be back.
Now, speaking of Pat DeWine, who is up for re-election to the Ohio Supreme Court, when we talk about the hats that Governor DeWine has worn, he was on that redistricting commission, and it was a bit of a controversy that Pat DeWine didn't recuse himself from those rulings about the voting districts that we're now seeing. What do you make of that?
Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of folks thought that Justice DeWine likely should have recused himself from that case because his father, Governor Mike DeWine, was party to it. He chose not to. He didn't think there was a conflict of interest. And it was crucial because a lot of those decisions ended up being 4-3 decisions, throwing out the maps. So that ended up being crucial, but it doesn't seem like it's hurt him in his re-election bid this year.
But I think on that very point is why we don't talk enough about the importance and the power that the Ohio Supreme Court has over Ohio voters. The decisions that they made just this year alone, when you look at redistricting, now potentially issues around women's rights and abortion, what bigger impact could they have? They decide cases involving even potential spending. It is a race that doesn't get enough attention. What was different this year was that for the first time, as a result of Republican putting this forward through the legislature, you got to see Republican and Democrat next to the name of the Supreme Court justice. I'm wondering if you think that might play into results today.
I think it does play into the results. You could make a case either way on whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
And Democrats once wanted it as well.
Right. It's going to help whichever party seems to be doing better in a given year of this year in this state. That seems to be the Republicans. So it's likely going to play out that move helps them. A lot of folks think that judges should appear above the law, should be above the, or not above the law, above partisanship, and enforce the law, interpret the law. But some would argue that that's not really how it plays out in practice, and so giving voters more information might be good.
Professor, we have 15 seconds left. Going to be a long night when it comes to these results in your mind, very quickly?
I think it is going to be a long night, at least nationally. I'm not so much sure about Ohio, but I think Pennsylvania and Georgia may come down to the wire.
Thank you. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you for being with us for our Election 2022 streaming special. Now we'll send it over to Russ and Laura Queso for your TV check-in.
What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers, and what matters most. Weekday afternoon starting at 4, only on 3 News.
Snow days, bitter cold, Northeast Ohio winters can get a bit crazy. When they do, will schools close? Will classes be online? Will you have to work remotely? Be the first to know with iAlert, Northeast Ohio's instant closing system. On air, online, on the go. The iAlert tells you how schools, daycares, businesses, and more are altering their plans so you don't get caught off guard. The iAlert, first, fast, accurate. Exclusively from 3 News.
Go. It's a simple verb with a much deeper meaning. Go with purpose. Go quickly. Go to school. Go to work. Go for it. And sometimes you just really have to go. Some mornings are harder than others. We should know. That's why every morning on 3 News Go, Maureen, Dave, Holly, and Danielle are here for you with the latest news, weather, and traffic to help keep you informed and prepared so that you're in the know when you go for your best day. 3 News Mornings. Know and go. What's new?
So much. At 4 o'clock, Betsy and Jay bring you up to speed on the day's top talkers, plus the events and people that have them talking.
What's now?
At 5, Christy and Carmen keep the energy going with familiar faces and deep dives on what's happening in the news.
And what you need to know.
Russ and Laura deliver the day's top news at 6 and share stories important to Northeast Ohio.
Stories, newsmakers.
It is now 9:26 in this election night. I'm Russ Mitchell.
And I'm Laura Queso. 3 News' Lena Lai joins us live now from Columbus with the state's Republican Party. Lena, we just heard from Governor Mike DeWine.
Yes, we did. You know, Governor Mike DeWine projected to have won his second term in office around 7:30, very early in the evening, and just a few moments ago gave his victory speech. Here's a little bit of it right now.
Thank you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to continue to serve. And thank you for giving the most precious thing you can, and that is time and opportunity for us to continue to work for you.
Back here live at the Republican Party headquarters for the Republican ticket for Ohio. You know, Governor DeWine, such a longtime fixture in Ohio politics. He was a state senator, congressman, lieutenant governor, a U.S. senator, an attorney general, and now twice elected governor. Governor Mike DeWine with a 46-year-long career in Ohio politics, and it is now continuing. Now, let's send things over to check in on the Tim Ryan campaign. Here is Lydia Spar live in Boardman. Hi, Lydia.
Hi, Lena. Thank you. Well, the music is playing. The crowd is still happy despite the fact that J.D. Vance has a slight lead over Tim Ryan. Of course, the votes are starting to come in from today voting, and that's where he started to take the lead. At one point, Ryan had the lead because of the early votings, the write-in votings, all of those, but that has all changed. But it's still too early to call. We have been saying all night this is going to be a tight race, and it will be no different than we have been predicting for this. It's only by like a 0.5 percentage point, so we have to just stay with him here and see how the voting keeps going. I'm sure it'll change once you get to Mahoning County, Cuyahoga County. It'll change again once you get to Dayton and Toledo. So it's all up in the air for now, guys. Back to you.
All right, Lydia, thanks so much. You spoke with a college professor a second ago. He predicted it's going to be a late night when it comes to this race.
It might be.
Thanks for joining us here on 3 News. Going to send you back to NBC with more election coverage from across the nation.
But make sure to stick around. We will be back here again with another live look at your Ohio election results in just a bit.